Hey there, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from everyday entrepreneurs. All right, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show. Excited to be here today. I'm Jeff Heggie with my co-host Heidi Anderson of ECI Secure Pay, and we're excited today to have Andrea MacKenzie with us today from Lead WithHarmony. Andrea and I had an opportunity to meet, it's been a few months, I guess, and do some work together. And she's got a really interesting background. She does some great work, and I'm excited to have her on here. She does some great things, but I'm going to let her tell a little bit about herself and get into that, and then we'll get into things. So go ahead, Andrea.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you guys, Jeff and Heidi, for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. And my name is Andrea MacKenzie. I am a leadership and business coach. I work with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs, as well as leaders in larger corporations. And sometimes I even work with folks on developing their own personal and career growth. I'm a huge advocate for women in leadership, so I work with a lot of women. Not to say that there's not men in my world, there absolutely is. And mainly I work with people to understand who they are and lead from within. So it's this idea of sort of conscious leadership and leading from your big why and accomplishing your goals that way. That's essentially what a coach does, right? It's about helping people accelerate what they want to get done. And those are my main clients, are people who are looking to really do the deeper work and go from there.
Now, did you start out like in the corporate world and learn some of these things and then go out and become a coach, or how did you get started?
So my, like a lot of people, my path was kind of like right here. I went to school for music, and I still love music and play and write music. When I'm not coaching, you'll find me playing at the House of Blues or wherever I'm playing at the moment.
You can see the guitar sitting behind
I know
right now.
That would be really cool, though. Yeah, to actually
this
see
is
you
my
play.
office / music room / this is LA, right? So everything's all in one room. But yeah, so I started off as a musician, and coming out with a music degree, I was one of those people that was moving from lateral job to lateral job to lateral job. So working in post-production audio and musical instruments, and so being on that ground floor and realizing I could do so much more. At the time I would have given you some sob story about how I can't get out of this, this wheel, and actually it was the greatest learning ground to like really kind of get stuck like that. And so I went on to get my MBA after all those different jobs, and use that opportunity to get into consulting. And I was in the entertainment business for a while in Los Angeles. So very large corporations, all the studios were my clients, doing operational and organizational improvement work. So I went out on my own as a consultant in 2012. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who had started her own business, and she's like, "You should talk to my coach." And my response was, a coach? I was like, what is the life coach? What do you mean? Like, really just like, I'm from the East Coast. I was like that cynical, sarcastic. I was like, I don't need a coach. Oh my gosh, it changed my life to really dig into what it meant to do that. And then and so much comes out from coaching. A lot of people have coaches that come in, they're not truly a coach by my definition, right? The definition is a little fuzzy, telling people what to do and all that. It's very directive kind of consulting work, which is what the recommendations and the analysis and all that was where I came from. And getting into coaching was like, really helping somebody, again, go inward, right? And understand, why it is they keep going around in circles, or, how they can really use who they are to be a great leader and to make an impact. That's such the beauty of coaching. And yes, of course, the corporate work comes into play. There's sometimes you talk about different solutions and you brainstorm and you talk about what you've done, but it's really all about the coachee, right? It's about where they want to go and who they are. It's not about me. And that's what I like. That's what I love about coaching.
So the question that comes up, because I know you have to deal with it because I have to deal with it. What do you do with a person like you that you can help it, but they're like, a coach? Are you real serious? I don't need a coach. So how do you approach that?
Well, I mean, people have to be open. Obviously, I made the first step. I called the coach and I actually made the appointment and I decided to be open. And I think that's true of anything that someone's going to go do. They have to be open to it. That skepticism doesn't help.
Coachable.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there is that thing. I mean, coaches talk about that a lot. Like, that person just isn't coachable. I don't think that's true, actually. I think it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like
maybe they just weren't the right fit or something.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I went through like 25 chiropractors before I found the one that was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, my life has changed. And I think that's how it is with coaches is, I think one of the biggest mistakes that corporations make when they hire, larger coaching firms and things like that is they just stick a coach with somebody instead of allowing them to interview many different coaches. And even myself, when I have especially when it's a larger group and it's people that I don't know yet, I'm like, have them meet me, have them meet some other coaches that I work with and see who's a good fit. You're gonna click with somebody. Someone's gonna get, everybody has a different coaching style. And that's okay. They're meant for the people they're meant for. So I found the right person, which was awesome.
Cool. Okay, one of the things in your introduction, you talked about conscious leadership and how you help create that. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so a lot of the work that I do has to do with understanding where you're coming from energetically or emotionally. And, sometimes people are, like I said, being open to that is something. If you're working with me, we're gonna get into that stuff, right? So maybe I'm not right if that's not something you're okay with. And so this idea of conscious leadership really comes from this idea that the more that you become self-aware and the more that you become aware of the people around you, the less judgment there is. And there is, in my mind, and this is something I learned actually in a framework when I first started learning what coaching was through IPEC, is that the more consciousness, the higher consciousness levels you reach, the less judgment there just is in your life. The less you judge yourself, which is probably the number one thing we do, right? And then we go ahead and we send that outward to everybody else. Whatever we judge ourselves on, we're judging them on. And especially in the workplace, being able to really tap into receptivity, listening for what's between the words and listening to what people are feeling, asking the questions, right? Those open-ended things, really being conscious of what's going on within yourself and other people makes you a great leader. And the other thing too, that's a really big pet peeve of mine is everyone is a leader. Everyone is leading, and they're leading their own lives, and they're leading something within that's affecting you if you're working with them, and so on and so forth. So to really look at it as this exchange, this connection, that you're affecting each other by being in each other's presence, that's really, to me, what it means. And I'm going to keep developing whatever that definition is as I continue to work with people who are open to
it's kind of like energy. It's like everything's energy, right? So it's kind of like if you're putting off a vibration of I'm not good enough, and that's what you're thinking, then you're going to kind of attract that into your life. And until somebody can realize that and shift their way of thinking, like you said, about themselves, or maybe even some self-forgiveness or whatever it takes to put off a different energy so they can attract better things into their life and into their business.
Absolutely. I think the two processes that people use the most to get from the icky energy into the next energy is forgiveness, right? So like you just said, right? Forgiving themselves or forgiving whatever else they're angry at. Sometimes they're angry at God, it's like whatever you're angry at, right? And then that next process is gratitude. And if you can jump right to gratitude, right, and as often as possible, that's true magic. It's not always that simple, but
it's like find something even small that you can be happy about. I have a roof over my head. I'm happy. I'm gracious. I'm grateful. And then you can kind of expand from there, right?
Oh yeah, and right now it's interesting because it's an interesting time because as quickly as you can tell everybody everything that's wrong with the world right now, you can immediately also be like, oh my gosh, but I have a roof over my head, or I'm healthy, or it's just real simple things. Yeah.
It's just what you focus on expands. So it's like getting people to focus on the positive instead of the negative.
Yep. That's absolutely true, right?
Yeah. So when you look at this conscious leadership, when you look at environment and all the things that you work on, because I know you've worked with some bigger corporations, how does that play into hiring the right people, putting the proper team together? And also, how does it play into if you've already hired the wrong people?
Oh, yeah. So I've actually had that recently happen with someone that I one of my clients, where, so, there's always going to be the analytical strategic side of business. You're not going to completely get rid of that. And, there's always going to be that side. What's interesting, and it actually is, I don't know, sometimes it's the same for larger and smaller corporations. It depends. But a lot of times we'll hire people because we like them. We like them. Sometimes we hire them because we saw a resume and it's like, whew, they got everything we need, right? So there's sort of these different pieces of someone's being, their psychology that I like to look at. And one is what they know, right? So that resume, a lot of times that's the first pass. Sometimes it's the personality. Oh, we met this person. We got to find them a job here. We love them, like it's that kind of thing, But I also like to use a tool that assesses the cognitive side of who someone is. And it's a very underused sort of concept. It's about what doesn't change in someone, how they approach problem solving. And I've seen time and again, somebody hire someone who the resume said they knew what they needed to know. The personality, like they loved the person, they asked the case studies, all these things, and it all came out great. But then when we assess for the cognitive, they're actually not a fit for the job. So I'll answer the first part of the question first, which is getting very clear on what you require for that job before you ever go out and look for somebody is so important. I don't know how many times I've heard, like, we hired this person and they're just kind of like writing their job and we're just figuring it out. It's like, okay, I mean, sure. But let's put some other inputs into this, right? Because it's expectations, right? It's like anything, entering into a contract with somebody saying, here's what we're gonna do. I mean, contracts can be icky too, but then you're deciding all these agreements around what is this gonna look like? And it's very peaceful once you get through the other side. It's the same thing with hiring. It's like, what are we looking for? Who is this person reporting to? Are there more than one person that's going to need this person to do different things? Are we asking them to be the whole kitchen sink, which is what I see a lot, particularly with very small businesses? Well, we need somebody who's really detail oriented, but also can summarize things in a second. And we need somebody who can write really, really long, complex processes and be super compliant, but also be really adaptive. And we need somebody who's risk averse, but also can run with the changes. It's like, you're not going to find that person. You've already written a job description that has shot you in the foot. And good luck. And I literally could go on to Indeed or any of those sites right now and find 10 job descriptions. I could tell you they're already not going to work. So when you have the person, let's say you did that, and you got the person in your, in your world. Now it's a matter of looking at everybody, look at the whole team. And instead of looking at it as like, this job is this job and this job is this job, look at the team. Who do you have? What do you need to get done? Understand what their approach to problem solving is. And there are assessments that do that, right? Understand that piece and then decide what tasks really should belong to which person. And sometimes it's just the wrong fit, and putting very objective information in front of people around, here's who you are. Yes, I agree with that. Here's what job requires. Yes, I agree with that. They don't match. Sometimes people just simply walk away. They go, oh, yeah, this is never going to work. This is not going to work. And I've literally been that person to come in after like a year and a half of trying to coach somebody and change things to say, here's what it is. here's what you would need to change, which doesn't look like it's going to happen. And then they part peacefully without any emotional, like, oh, well, I was wrong. And it's like, no, it was a bad hire in the first place. Not that you're a bad person, but it just wasn't the right fit. Right. So getting that clear at the beginning.
So you come in at the, so I'm, before I hire anybody, I would bring you in to help me write the job description and get very clear on what I want and what I'm looking for. And that description, that's part of what you do?
Yes. And so one of the things I always do with like what I call a right fit hire package is I like to talk to the person who's hiring, but if there's other people around that are going to be also expecting things, sometimes they do shared resources and things like that. Get very clear on what everybody is going to be expecting of this person. And there's actually assessments that I use to assess the job and then assess the person who is the person who's hiring, right? The person who's going to be the direct supervisor. And sometimes also those lateral kind of dotted line leaders to understand what they're going to expect and how they going to have to work with this particular role. And everybody can sit down and say, yes, that's it. That's what we need. Then you go out and you literally go out, you find the candidates. Of course, you want them to have great personalities. And there's also another piece to this, which is if you know what your company culture is, and that's another thing that sometimes is very gray with companies. And that's one thing that I believe is a great thing to work on is like, what is everybody's shared values here? Because then you can hire people to that as well. And as you start to, understand that everybody here really cares about making this impact or making sure that every day, you're exemplifying this value or this needs to show up. That's also another piece that's really cool to hire to in terms of fit and personality and all of that kind of stuff. So there's many pieces to hiring. But the thing that's cool about it is you get it right. I think it's something along like 80 or 90% of why people stay in jobs or why people leave jobs. You hired somebody as their, boss or somebody across from them or whatever that just doesn't fit and they want to get the heck out of there. So it's so important to get it right, or the other thing is you get the revolving door. You keep hiring wrong, they leave. You hire wrong, they leave. It's costly. So getting it slow, getting it right at the beginning will save you on the other side.
Right.
Well, at the end, we're going to make sure to give your contact information because I think anyone hiring really needs to be paying attention to this. But let's say take someone that is in a position, they need to hire someone. They're not in a position to bring in you or a coach or whatever. What are some of the most important things to look at? Because, like you talk about, there's so many factors there between what the job is, what that person's personality is, what the personality of the people they're going to work with, and maybe just touch on a few things like, say, a ruler and a hero archetype. I know someone that has those, and things like, what if you're a 7 in the quick start and Melissa's a 2? Those sort of things.
Yeah.
These are conversations we've had before, so that's why I wanted to touch on this.
So to be clear about what Jeff was talking about, so I do a lot of different assessments. I think I've taken every assessment under the sun. So I've honed in on the ones that really work for me and with the people that I work with. And there's a couple pieces to this. One you're talking about is more of your branding archetypes, and the other one is your Colby, which is what I was talking about before, which is the conative strengths, which is a very objective thing. So when you're talking about brand, I think the most important thing for the business owner or the leader who has a specific brand. So if they're a hero archetype and it's about, empowering people and this kind of thing, understanding that needs to be part of your language when you're talking to people, because that will attract the people that want to be around that. It's just like if you're marketing your business, my business is about this, it's going to attract certain people and other people are going to be like, no way, that's not my thing. And that polarization is great, especially when you're hiring. It's like, if you're not for me, don't be here, so getting clear on your message. Here's what when I'm hiring somebody, when somebody works for me, here's what I do, here's what I expect, right? Being very clear on that from from your archetype perspective. I will empower you. You will be autonomous, right? Like whatever that is. If the other person's like, oh God, no, I need like a micromanager, right? Whatever it is. It's really about communicating who you are in a very clear way. So that's one of the things when I'm talking to the hiring managers or the entrepreneurs, to get clear on what their brand is, so that when they're speaking, it's just naturally going to happen. Either people will be attracted or they're not going to be attracted. When you're talking about Kolbe, so we'll just use Quick Start as an example. So there's a mode in the Kolbe assessment where you're on one end of the spectrum, which means you're very sort of fly by the seat of your pants, innovative, just off the cuff kind of person. That's me. That's Jeff. It's just like ideas and
right brain.
ideas and brainstorming and all this, right? And then on the other end of that spectrum is someone who is all about stabilizing and all about mitigating risk. Both of those are very important. And there's people in the middle that sort of modify and bend to both ways, right? One of the things that I hear a lot of times in job descriptions is almost like I want somebody who can kind of reach across all of these spectrums. I want you to be all about the innovation. Our company's innovative. It's fast paced. It's changing, but we need to have you mitigating risk. It's like, okay, all right, which one am I? I can't be both. I won't be both. I've done risk mitigation in small chunks, right? Because I've been a project manager for large programs. But at the end of the day, that is not, I don't focus on the stabilization. I find the people who do that in a change management effort, and we definitely put them in that role. So if you can't hire somebody, at least take a look at some of these assessments, right? Take a look at what somebody's strengths are, so that you can make sure that you're not asking for too much, that you're not hiring somebody who's outside of what you need. And there's simple ways to kind of look into what I'm talking about and at least grasp it enough, to not make the huge mistakes, hire way outside of the zone of what you're looking for.
That's great. Thank you. All right. I was actually just pulling up all my assessments that we had done and just checking those out.
So what did she discover about you?
Do you want me to analyze Jeff? No.
Yes. Well, because he's definitely probably more right brain. I'm definitely more like kind of the left brain a little bit. Yeah. But I try to balance the two, definitely, because he teases me. I told him one time that I dream in spreadsheets when I'm trying to solve a problem. My brain puts it into a spreadsheet. But at the same time, I like to exercise my right brain as much as possible. It's just that's dominant.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too, to be clear, like it's not necessarily about right and left. We all use both, right? And it's so important. But your way of leading, like your way of problem solving, might start with organizing, or gathering details and facts, right? So that is absolutely a conative thing, and that's great, And I can't tell you how many times people are hiring for long line follow through, long line fact finder, spreadsheet folks, they're like, we need it, because it's so great. Now I need people like that
because I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I need that. I mean, I do love a spreadsheet. I'll tell you, I do love a spreadsheet, but because I'm a little bit on the fact findery side. So I'm talking in terms that don't necessarily make sense, but it's really about approach to problem solving and where you're really being free to be yourself. And in the end, like I said, even though this can be a very objective, non-emotional way of looking at people, which I think really works in a corporate setting, because it's like, here it is, guys, this doesn't change. Most people agree. Every once in a while, you get somebody who's like, I don't know if this is me. And they get kind of, and usually that's an emotional thing going on. But what's cool about it is it's like, once you understand it and you get to really like glom onto what you do, you're free to be who you are. People can see it, they can laugh about it, you can discuss it, there's a common language. I've seen companies completely like, we need to know somebody's conative strengths right now, because it makes things easier. And to me, I think life is about joy and ease, and not that hard work isn't important, like that virtue concept, but
that's easy. The first time I've actually heard the word conative.
Yeah.
Strength. not cognitive, right?
Not cognitive. So
how's it spelled?
Yeah. So in the Kolbe framework, so Kolbe Corporation is the one that makes this assessment. It's not my assessment. They have a cool little framework around the 3 parts of the mind. They didn't invent this, by the way. This has been talked about since Socrates' time, and they actually have a whole history on conation. What has happened is, for some reason, the conative has gotten lumped in with this, what they call the affective and the cognitive. So cognitive, you've heard. Cognitive is what you know, your IQ, how you learn, what you know, right? That side, which is very about education, And then the other one is the affective, your personality, your emotions, your fears, right? Like motivation, which is so important in corporate America, but it's very hard to pin down. It's like a moving target, right? The conative is the third piece, CONATIVE. And when you type it in, it will autocorrect to cognitive.
Sure will.
Because it's a word that people don't use. But if you go to Kolbe.com, there's all kinds of information, and I can send it to you too, on what it's all about. It's been around for many, many years, and it's about the will, right? So it's the thinking, feeling, doing. The doing piece is the conative, the feeling piece is the affective, and the thinking piece is the cognitive. And they all, in order for us to create the things we create, they all come together in one beautiful, it's hard to separate, but you can analyze things in that separate way. A lot of times we really love things that we don't do, right? So like for me, spreadsheets, like really great spreadsheets with like macros. I mean, love, do no. Use yes, develop no. You know what I mean? So it gets very complicated because a lot of assessments, they focus on the affective and what you like and what you're passionate about and all of this, but you can be passionate about something that you actually don't do. And that actually I've seen people come from my world, from the Kolbe world, and go into a company where the company does other types of assessments. I'm not going to name them, but really popular assessments. And they're all trying to like fit us around these results, and they don't really fit. And then I look at their Kolbe and I look at the results and I'm like, oh, yeah, you really care about this stuff, but you shouldn't be doing it. Like, it's going to stress you out. Like, I hate the word should, but if you keep doing it, you're going to get stressed out. That's what happens when you're performing outside of your, like, if somebody told me I had to mitigate risk all day long, I'd be like, oh, this isn't happening, So, yes, I can do it in short spurts. And there's ways that I work with people who do. You're not going to get to do everything you want to do and everything you do in your stride all day long. Let's be honest. But there's ways to set a timer and be like, okay, I'm doing this awful thing for 20 minutes and then I'm going to do it again for, there's
just get it out of the way.
Yeah. There's so many tools and ways to get around it. Yeah. And make you more productive, really, by the way. Productivity is a huge piece of what comes out of understanding how you work cognitively. It's huge. Get back your time.
Having the right people in the right spots. I mean, this is a Jim Collins, having the right people on the bus, having them in the right
bus.
seat.
Well, I remember the first time go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you can fit those people in the right seats, yeah, absolutely. What you said, Andrea, is you're going to have a more productive team because they're not doing risk mitigation all day if that's what they hate. And so you're going to see a lot more productivity out of them. I agree there. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say one of the first exposures I got to company culture, because nobody really used to talk about that. It seems like it's kind of maybe the last 20 years, where culture became really a conversation about your corporation was at Zappos and Tony Sue. And I lived in Las Vegas, and you could go tour their thing, and because their company culture was fun. And like, if you did not want to have fun, you were not going to fit in there. And you went in that place and it had just such a levity, but it was one of those things that would drive some people crazy, because people, they would decorate their desks and they'd have balloons and it was just like, it was a really fun atmosphere. But if somebody is not like that, then that's something that they interviewed for. Was kind of having that peppy, almost cheerleader personality, and I thought, well, that was interesting because you could feel the energy of that when you walk into the office.
That was when I was a bank manager. I used the book Fish, that's about Pike's Place Fish Market in Seattle. And that was their whole thing too, is having fun. But the message I got out of there is basically, you know what, you're spending the majority of your life at work with these people. You're spending more time with these people at work than you are with your family. So if you're not enjoying it, if you're not having fun, make a change.
So how did you bring fun to banking?
Oh, it was a blast. We got rid of all the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Oh,
but it was.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about that is, who doesn't want to have fun, really? I mean, really. But what's interesting about that, it just is literally just popped into my head, is like, I think what happens is there's a limiting belief in a lot of people's heads walking into an environment like that. Like, you can't have fun like that and be at work, because so many people are in jobs
done.
Yeah, like there's all these limiting beliefs that just won't allow them to be, because there's so much that's gone on in our minds. Again, like that idea that hard work, it's all about, like there's a virtue behind that. But no, like Jeff said, we spend so much more time at work than anywhere else. Why would we want that to be where we're not having fun and not connecting with other human beings? And that's part of the conscious leadership thing too, is like connection and understanding that we're part of something bigger than just our own little heads and our own little agendas and metrics and strategies and all these things. So yeah. And company culture is also, there's been a lot lately on rewarding companies for that, or rating companies on that. And there's a lot of false information out there as well. I've met people, this is something that kills me too. I've met people from some of the best places to work, and purposefully, I'm in air quotes if anybody's listening audio wise, because it's not real. It's the way that some of these people are assessing it, or companies are telling their people, you better make sure that you rate us good, all these different things. I've met people at some of the best places to work, and they are miserable, and they're like, I don't know, I don't see it, I don't know what that magazine is talking about, and when I say best places to work, I'm talking about all of them. I'm not talking about any specific one. There's so many lists, right? But I can tell you, I can name 5 companies off the top of my head where I'm like, there's no way it's true. So it's a big thing right now. Like you said, in the last 20 years or so, it's a big thing. And I think, it is important, but it's also hard to know walking into a company how true or real it is. You really just have to connect with people. And that's, one of the things I tell people too on the career side. So there's the other side of the coin, right? The person who's going in to see if the job is for them, walking in knowing that you can walk away if you start to get a feeling for stuff that isn't in your world. And when I work with the person who is looking for the job, we talk about their conative, and I say, when you go in there, tell them, this is how I work. This is what you can expect from me, right? I am a brainstormer. I need time to plan, or whatever those things are, so that a person on the other end can say, this isn't a fit. If it's truly not, it's a win-win.
And I'm sure as an employer, it would be refreshing to have somebody come in and know that much about themselves. And not trying to go make themselves fit into the position so that they can just get the job.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. How great is that, right? If everybody kind of understood. Yeah. And it's also this thing of, people get really desperate sometimes when they're like, I need a job and I can't find this thing. And so you just walk in and you just like say everything that you think someone wants to hear. And that's not going to serve anyone. It's a matter of, it's a two-way street. You're both interviewing each other. Make sure that it's right, because if you get in that job and it's not right, now you're going to be looking for another job again come, 6 months later, which is very typical.
And they just wasted 6 months training you. I mean, it's like you say, it's both ways. So yeah. It really
is. And again, that desperation can come from either side. Sometimes the person that's hiring is like, I just need somebody now. And then, or the person who's looking for the job is like, I just need a job,
I've done that. I've been in a desperate situation and hired someone that I thought they're probably not the best option. and I just have to get someone hired. And yeah, I would have been better off not moving forward at all. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, this has been a pleasure. So much great information. For our listeners that want to be in touch with you, and especially if any of them are hiring and they need to do it right, let them know where to find you.
Absolutely. So my website is leadwithharmony.com. If you want to get in touch with me directly, Andrea@leadwithharmony.com. You can just email me directly. And yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear from anybody who's interested in hiring, interested in the conscious leadership development concept, even people that are looking to grow in their careers. There's so many ways to help, and if this is ringing true for somebody, I'd love to hear from them.
Absolutely. It's not just for those hiring, it's those looking for a job too, and they want to find the right job. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Andrea.
Absolutely. And just to also note, on leadwithharmony.com, there's a little pop-up there. You can take the branding assessment and get a little slice of what we're talking about in terms of your big why and your spiritual contract, what you're really out there looking to make an impact with in the world. So that's up there.
I'll have to do that, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, Heidi. Love to see that.
And I want to know anyone that comes in higher than a 46 on Ruler or 45 on Hero.
Now he's in a competition. He's like,
game on.
Exactly. It's my fit. All right. Well, thank you. Great to be with you. See you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.